Good morning. Welcome back to KXAN Live. I'm your anchor, Esmeralda Zamora, and today we have our Wednesday mornings Kristen's Classroom segment with meteorologist Kristen Currie. Kristen, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Of course, pretty good this morning. Very busy morning in the Weather Center for today, gearing up for tomorrow.
Very busy week, right? We've had a lot of cold weather here.
We sure do. It's been cold all week, and we're finally starting to add a little bit more spiciness, if you will, to the forecast starting tonight with some of that wintry weather that we've been warning everybody about for the last couple of days.
And that wintry weather is exactly what we're going to be talking about today on Kristen's Classroom. Let's dive into it. What do you have for us?
For sure. So, just to lay out the groundwork first, we do anticipate most of the area to get cold rain tomorrow, but we've been advertising and warning you of the fact that there's likely going to be some wintry mix and some spots of that in parts of the hill country within that cold rain tomorrow, maybe even the Austin metro. So when we say wintry mix, what are we talking about here? Well, as far as, sleet, freezing rain, even the possibility of sleet and snow, this is going to be something that I don't think very many of us will see, but, oops, I went too far. Let me go back. We're going to be looking at the potential for some of that warm air mixing with the cold air to give us those sleet pellets in that freezing rain. Now, what happens in the atmosphere for this to occur? Obviously, we know rain, that's liquid rain. That's if it starts as a snowflake, it runs into warmer air between the cloud and the ground. And unfortunately, that sometimes will melt a snowflake. And I say unfortunately because I've seen a lot of comments, people saying, I want a snow day. Listen, I get it too. I want a snow day as well. But this is going to be, I think, mainly cold liquid rain. Now, if that snowflake is falling through the layer of the atmosphere that is air that is below freezing from the cloud to the ground, then we're going to have a snowflake the entire way. And that too is possible. In fact, we had some flurries this morning. But there's also sometimes the situation in which there's some warm air and there is some cold air underneath that cloud. When there's a deeper warm layer compared to a shallow cold layer down here at the ground where we live and do our life, then that's when we get freezing rain. Looks like rain when you're looking out the window, but it freezes on anything and everything. That is actually what we had back in 2023 for that crippling ice storm that we had in Austin. That was all freezing rain. Now, sleet's a little different when it comes to sleet. Sleet is perhaps a snowflake in the cloud falling out of that cloud. It encounters some of that warm air and that snowflake partially melts, but then there's a deeper layer of cold air right underneath that partially melted snowflake has to fall through before it eventually reaches the cloud. So that partially melted snowflake refreezes and then you get sleet. Now, sleet is often confused with hail here in Central Texas because hail is so common in the springtime with thunderstorms that I think we kind of default to that. Sleet doesn't bounce when it hits the ground or anything down here at the surface, and it's pretty squishy. If you were to pick up a sleet pellet and squish it between your fingers, it's just kind of like a mushy snowflake. But all of this is possible as we get into, any winter storm really could bring any of these. But for us here locally, tonight into tomorrow, I think we're going to be certainly on the warmer side, but we could start to see that freezing rain and that sleet in our hill country, especially as we get into tomorrow morning. Now, tomorrow afternoon, with temperatures warming above freezing, I do anticipate most of it to fall as liquid rain. So, with the precipitation types, that's kind of the science behind it, if you will. If you wanted to take it one step further, for sleet and snow, you do need ice crystals up in the atmosphere. And there's a certain zone we look at. I talked about this on air this morning, the snow growth zone or the dendritic growth zone, where the temperature and the saturation really need to match. It needs to happen to have that criteria met within it's probably a few thousand layers up, ice crystals to form before sleet and snow occur. But in general, it's that temperature beneath the cloud that determines what I see down here at the ground. So it brings us to the fun stuff, the donuts. So, Asbay, do you like donuts?
I love donuts.
I know. It's hard to find a person who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this. As mentioned, I do a lot of school visits, a lot of studio tours, which is why this segment is called Kristen's Classroom. I try and get myself as fluent as I can in kid language. So when we talk about wintry precipitation, if you were to think about a donut, putting a donut outside, if that donut gets soggy, we're looking at plain old rain, right? Just a soggy donut. If that donut looks like it has a glaze on it, then we have freezing rain, right? If we have a donut outside that looks like it's got sugar on it, like the picture, that would be sleet. If your donut looks like it has coconut flakes on it, that would be snow. So kind of a good, very simplified way of thinking about wintry precipitation, especially considering here in Central Texas, because we don't often get true full-blown snowstorms and that's it. It oftentimes does come in with some messier weather. This is a good way to explain to kids what freezing rain versus sleet versus snow would look like. A glazed donut would be freezing rain, sugar donut would be sleet, and coconut flakes would be snow.
Wow. Now, does it matter what kind of donut you use for this science project?
I don't think so. I think, as long as it kind of starts plain, but you could do the blueberry donut, the vanilla donut, the chocolate donut, whatever you want. But this would be something to think about. Now, I don't necessarily know or encourage you to put a donut outside and watch it, because I think here in Central Texas, as mentioned, we're going to see a lot of soggy donuts tomorrow. But there is the possibility, especially in the hill country, we see glazed donuts or freezing rain. But this is a good, I think, way of, in our heads, kind of distinguishing between those different wintry precipitations. Because again, sleet looks like hail, freezing rain looks like rain when it's falling. And oftentimes with ice, you don't know what you're looking at until you're outside walking on it and you're slipping and sliding all around. But I thought this was a good explainer for our littles and maybe for some of our grown-ups too, and in the different ways to distinguish between what's falling from the sky.
Yeah, and if our viewers participate in this little project that you've shared, that would be interesting for us to see all the different areas of Central Texas and what kind of donuts we were getting everywhere, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I sometimes say sleet is like Dippin' Dots. So if you've got Dippin' Dots in the freezer and you see something that looks like Dippin' Dots outside, take a picture, compare the two. All sorts of little tips and tricks to simplify and really drive the message home of winter precipitation is very exciting. It can be just as exciting as springtime storms.
Yeah, Kristen, when you're talking about sleet and snow and frozen rain, all that stuff, when I'm driving to work, I like to listen to the KXAN podcast and hear your weather segments. And you talk a lot about frozen bridges. Why do we get those frozen bridges?
So elevated surfaces, and that could be an elevated highway, bridge, flyover, overpass, no matter what it is. And I actually think I have something maybe in my graphic right here that I can show you. It's the cold air that sometimes runs underneath that bridge or that elevated surface that can give us some really big problems because the surface is going to be colder than the surrounding areas. Let me see if I can, that would just be black ice. So, well, in the case, if you notice just to the left of the highway sign, you see it's on pillars. So this is an elevated highway. So you have very cold air going above, underneath, on the sides of that portion of the highway. So it's losing heat faster than a road laying straight on the ground. So that's why we are most concerned about bridges, overpasses, flyovers initially, because they're the first to freeze. Those temperatures there on the road are going to be the first to drop down to 32 because you're losing heat from the bottom too and not just the top. So that's why we say avoid those bridges, overpasses, and flyovers. In the case of freezing rain, as you can see, it would be black ice. So ice that you can't see on the black asphalt of a highway. But as mentioned, that would be very spotty, if at all, when it comes to the black ice and the freezing rain along our roadways in the hill country. Very little, if any, expected in Austin.
And what can we expect for the rest of today in the forecast?
So the rest of today, we anticipate mainly dry skies, cloudy conditions. There would likely be a little bit more of that activity trying to get going late tonight, but I'm thinking come midnight on, that's when we're going to be looking at the rain, the widespread cold rain, and the spotty wintry mix, which again, we're updating that forecast continually today. So I encourage you to join meteorologist Tommy House. He's got the next update, which is coming up on KXA News at 11.
For all of our UT fans headed to Fort Worth, to Dallas, is today a good travel day for them?
Today's the best travel day for them. We've been encouraging you, and I put something on my Facebook page too if you're real concerned about it. I kind of broke it down day by day, tomorrow being the worst day. My advice to you would be Friday late morning. I know a lot of us can't leave today. It's a lot of time off work, but if you can leave Friday late morning, that would be, I think, a better bet than any time tomorrow. Tomorrow just looks like a washout here locally, and then you're going to run into some icier conditions up north.
Yeah, so do not drive to Dallas tomorrow.
If you can prevent it, I would definitely wait till Friday morning.
And we have your article that can be found on kxan.com. On the homepage, it's titled Kristen's Classroom, Wintry, Mix, and Donuts. For anyone interested in participating in this science experiment, I think you have all the details in there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find it there on the website. If not, send me an email and I can help you out.
We've got some more graphics that we showed here on KXAN Live, and all those details, again, you can find that on our website, kxan.com, on the homepage.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us, Kristen. Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
No, just make sure you're staying up to date with the forecast and we'll get you through it.
Yes, and we will be back here on KXAN Live later today. We hope for everyone to join us. Thank you.